how do I build my own brand as a producer within our agency, but how do I add a little bit my own brand to it? How do I do my, own specializations?
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Hey, Mom, how you doing today?
Lindsay, I'm having a great day. We're having our driveway redone. And if we can make it through this podcast without the dog barking, it's going to be a fantastic day. That's exactly how my day's going. How's your day going?
It's going well. I'm recovering from being sick earlier this week, so sorry if my voice is not my normal. I don't even know what my voice normally sounds like. I guess I listen to it every Sunday when I edit the podcast, but it's definitely not normal right now. I sound like I smoke 12,000 packs a day, so that's lovely. But you're really adulting when the highlight of how you're introducing yourself on the podcast is getting your driveway redone. That's really adulting things.
Wow. Thanks, Linz. I appreciate that. Listen, you got to look for the highlights in your life. And for us, it's getting a new driveway. So, it is what it is. We live in a retirement area, and this is the highlight of the community today. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'm super pumped to jump in. For any people who know me who are listening, one of my big goals of the year has been to reach out and connect with people who are young and, as I'm qualifying them, doing cool things in the insurance industry. And I thought it was about time that I start bringing some of these people on the podcast that I'm meeting so that you guys can all meet them as well and find inspiration from what they're doing. So I'm super, super pumped. I had the chance to reach out to Jonathan Lugo, who is part of Veritas Insurance. That's Andrew Darlington's agency for anyone listening. I know he has a lot of friends and great connections in the industry. So super pumped to get to chat with Jonathan today about some fun things he's doing. Hey, Jonathan, how's it going?
Hey, how about y'all? It's awesome to be on. I appreciate the invitation. It's been great getting to know you, Lindsay, just a little bit recently, and I'm excited for today.
So tell us, Jonathan, how in the world did you find the insurance industry? This might be one of my favorite questions because everybody's answer is a little bit different. So I'd love to hear what made you pick this wonderful industry we call insurance.
Yeah, so I guess really before March of 2020 and that time leading up to there, I was 18. I was in a serious relationship with my now wife. And so we, basically I needed a job. I was still finishing up high school, doing some dual enrollment in college, and I just needed a job. So what I did is I took a 2-week internship here at my parents' the agency that my parents use for their home and auto insurance, a good friend of ours. And he was Andrew Darlington, the owner of the agency. And so he basically, took me under his wing for 2 weeks to do some basic tasks, cleaning his office, sending out some marketing texts, very humble work. And the idea was really just to shadow someone in a different industry for 2 weeks. That was really it, to see if that's a direction that I wanted to go and just try to get some exposure because I needed a job. A week before, I just applied as a waiter at a restaurant, so server at a restaurant. So that's sort of where I was at. But the 2 weeks went really well, and that turned into a month, and that turned into the summer, and then a year. And then by the time I finished college in 2022, went full time, got married, and I've been here since at the same agency. So I sort of fell into it in a way, and it was unexpected, but it worked out really, really well.
So I kind of love that you were a client, or your parents were a client of an agent, and you decided to take an internship. I got to tell you, Not a lot of people, I don't know if you know this, but not a lot of people think that insurance is an exciting place to start a career. What made you say yes to that? I'm just curious because listen, we're in the hardest employment market I think we've ever faced. And we're also, this industry as a whole is facing quite a transition with the silver tsunami happening. So many people are at retirement age in many, many roles inside the industry. So, what made you say yes to that? I mean, I know you needed a job, but can you give me any kind of insight what that and what kept you? Like tell me how that worked for you.
Yeah, I think um, a lot of it goes back to the non traditional hiring process where really, we reached out to Andrew about it, about the internship. He wasn't even offering at the time. He does now for the last several years. And so, we reached out to him. It was very much, working with the small business owner. He was very open to what works for me. He was flexible with his hours. He said, if you don't get your college degree, I'll still hire you. If you do, I'll be flexible while you do. It was just a very flexible, open ended. I was bounced around to different tasks as an intern. And so there was a little bit of some choice in what I would do. And so it wasn't just one position, either I like it or don't. It's, do I want to work here with these people, work with Andrew? Are they going to be flexible? And the answer was yes. And then after that, I discovered all the different things that I enjoy. And that's changed throughout the years of what I've been doing, whether it's Salesforce and our CRM and, systems integration and data migration and customization, all that. That was a huge part of what I did. And then now it's on the sales side, and it's really just it's been the flexibility of working with someone younger who's working through so many stages of life in just 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig into some of the things you're working on. I know Lindsay does too, but before I leave, why you got here and what your journey was. First of all, Andrew's an amazing guy. Like if anybody doesn't know Andrew, I can answer the question why you chose to do that because I'm sure an incredible mentor. He recently posted on Facebook a pretty impressive basket he made at a pool. Did you see that? Do you know what I'm
He was
talking
just showing
about?
us yesterday.
Yeah, that was really funny. But tell me, do you have a part in um, mentoring the interns now as someone who came through? I mean, you basically built that for him, whether you know it or not. So are you part of mentoring the new people that come into the agency today?
Yeah, I think a part of that. There's an intern on that side of my wall and on that side of my wall right now for the summer, and they're fantastic guys. And Andrew's still taking the lead on that, but I certainly try to jump in and help out when I can. And I think he's realized that that's a legitimate way of hiring people and mentoring people, and you're going to end up with some rock stars if you go that way, who are really just part of the culture and fit in and work their way up instead of only doing hiring for positions. So it's sort of we do both of those things here, and they fit well together. And sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. And at the end of the day, all our interns walk away, I think, having an awesome experience.
I mean, I got to tell you, if I was an intern coming in and I had an agency owner mentoring me and I had someone who's been there for a little bit, but more in my age group, I would be far more likely to stay in that agency than one that did not. So it's a brilliant approach, and the flexibility can't really be described until you actually experience it. Like that is one of the beautiful things about our industry that you can be flexible and still be really productive in roles inside small independent insurance agencies. And so hats off to Andrew for figuring, and hats off to you for asking. Like that is huge. It's absolutely huge. So I love hearing that. That makes me super happy.
And it really goes back to the impression that they made as a company too, even when we were just clients. And I'm a 17-year-old. I don't care who my parents' home and auto insurance provider is, but they had made such an impression. My dad would talk about. We knew Andrew as family friends before then, but my dad would talk about even another sales rep in the office who's now a colleague, is just how amazing she does and their level of customer service. So that's interesting. You would never think about that when you're thinking about hiring employees and retention, but in a smaller community like this, it really does work.
If you're an agency owner and you're thinking about selling your agency or thinking about growing by acquisition, you need to know what Cake is all about. Cake is an online marketplace designed to help buyers and sellers strategically find each other. One of the worst things you can do if you're selling one of your most valuable assets is to only talk to one buyer. Cake allows you to anonymously list a book of business or a slice or your entire agency for sale, vet those opportunities, and make sure that you've created demand for your agency and therefore the highest possible price. If you're looking to grow by acquisition, it's hard to find opportunities. Cake simplifies that process for you. I highly recommend to many of my clients that are thinking about dipping their toe into buying or selling an agency to check out Cake.
Totally. Well, I'd love to jump a bit deeper into some of the reasons that we originally connected and what you've been up to since you joined Veritas. One of the things that originally got us to connect is your posts on LinkedIn. So you're very active on LinkedIn, which I love. I try to be active as well, but you're much better than me, admittedly, at posting and engaging. But something you're always talking about is FirmSecured. And so when we originally connected, I think one of the first questions out of my mouth was like, all right, you work at Veritas, but you're always posting about this FirmSecured. Like, what is it? So would you mind sharing a bit about what it is and the role you've had in creating it?
Sure. So going back to historically the way it worked out. So, in the first couple years, I did a lot of, just behind the scenes admin work. A few summers ago, I started getting into sales. And originally, I just started cold calling whoever. I did a little bit of life insurance. I did a little bit of commercial insurance. I did a little bit of personal insurance. It was a mix of things. And, it's sort of spinning my wheels a bit because, I'm 19. I'm missing a lot of just knowledge about different industries, backgrounds. And so it's very hard to just walk into an electrical contractor and sell them commercial insurance and then sell life insurance the next day. There's so much you need to know and be learning. So I was sort of struggling a little bit in those few months. And so around that same time, I got on to the Protege show that David Crothers was doing at the time. And as part of that process, he had you pick three really target industries to go after and to build a marketing plan throughout the YouTube show for that. And so that's where FirmSecured came out of. It was really how do I build my own brand as a producer within our agency? I'm still a W-2 employee of Veritas. But how do I add a little bit my own brand to it? How do I do my own specializations, my own book of business? How do I take that nationwide in what's been a regional or local agency up to this point? And so the way we ended up doing that is Veritas Insurance or FirmSecured powered by Veritas Insurance. So FirmSecured is just a DBA for my work and program, but basically we've narrowed it down to one niche that I've focused on in the past 3 years. And that's for real estate professionals. So that was one of the three niches that I had on the Protege, and I just picked even one of those three and have focused on that since. So that's where FirmSecured came out of. We've been licensed in 47 states since then, so taking it nationwide and wanted to build more of a national brand in contrast to our local brand, which we're, of course, still very much continuing.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what were the other two niches that you didn't choose when you were on the show?
Yeah, so part of my thought process was to choose similar ones so I could do some cross-selling, and that's still in the future potentially, but it was title insurance, E&O, and I forgot what the other one, but I think it was like maybe lawyers or attorneys, E&O. So basically, different forms of miscellaneous professional E&O or E&O in some way. And I might get back to that in the future, but we can talk a little bit about why I'm really trying to stick to just one thing. But that's sort of been the goal right now.
Yeah, I'd love to chat about, I mean, building a lead source, especially being someone young in the industry, had to have came with a lot of challenges. I mean, especially you're super young and you've already said like you didn't have crazy depth of experience being wide. So what was that like to build that out and that whole process?
Sure. So building out my lead list has been very much hands-on. I don't know if it's the right way to do it, but I've literally just said, okay, I want to end up with, 500,000 of the best real estate agencies in the world. So I got to start finding them. And so I've basically done a ton of just Google work, and I've got about 5,000 leads in my system in Salesforce with some automation set up on the back end. And every single one of those, I put in a VA assistant that we have. I've sent her some websites, and she's helped out, which is fantastic. Get those entered in. But I can, I put hundreds of hours of work into that list. And so now I'm at the point where I can sort of take a step back and let that list work and work on that list, instead of having to do Googling real estate agencies. But I spent a ton of time just going through Google Maps, websites for franchises for the different offices, putting in phone numbers, finding who's in charge. And I think to me, that was the hardest part of getting started, honestly, in a niche, was just building 5,000 people to be able to call now.
Yeah, no doubt. And honestly, again, you're young, you're new to the industry, you're building out something. So I think I know the answer to this, but you pick something to be an expert in. Is that right? I mean, obviously you. So tell us about, how did you build being viewed as the expert to those, 5,000 people or 500 people that you put in your, like, how do you connect with them on a regular basis so you're the one that they think of?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the way we got started in this niche, and I think could serve as a model for others, and doing it the way it's worked out well, and certainly other interns and producers in our office, I think, have this in mind as well, is just finding a carrier who does a phenomenal job, wants to write that class of business, has advantages over everybody else, and learning from an underwriter, a VP, a wholesale broker, somebody like that already knows it, that has 20, 30 years of experience in that one area, asking them questions on every single submission, working with them. And what surprised me is how fast, I went as a 19, 20-year-old that didn't hardly know anything about insurance to start, to all of a sudden, in just a few months, honestly, knowing more about this one class than most other insurance producers, just by the sheer volume of talking to people. And it does take some failure. It does take talking to people and looking dumb a couple times, and people wondering why you're young and wondering why you don't know the answer. And I would say, just be honest. Be honest that you're young. Be honest that you're new. And within a few months, and certainly a year, if you're focused on one thing, by the time you've done 100 submissions on just real estate E&O, you've read every single policy of your competitors. You've talked to one underwriter, on 150 questions on this one class of business. That's probably more than most of your competitors have done if they've only written 5 real estate E&O policies, because they're doing so much other things. And so that's sort of the way I've tried to build credibility, is just saying, there's a lot of distracting business that could land easily on my desk. I could write it, and had to say no to that, but it's propelled me forward faster for more of a long-term success, I think, in my opinion. And there's certainly others like Andrew who've done it the other way, and have just read everything they can about every single topic and sought to become the expert in all of those. And he's done that well and built a wonderful general agency doing that. But for me, as a young person trying to build credibility, it's just, you've got to go all in, and you'll get there in a year, 2 years, 3 years, to where you look up and you're like, oh, I know more than the incumbent agent on this. And that it's a good feeling when you get there. And it takes a lot of working through, for me, self-doubt. I used to go into meetings. What if they know more about real estate E&O than I do? This is a real reality with clients. Now I would go into the meeting and just feel confident that we have something of value to offer, and we know what it is. And now we just see whether it's a good fit for them.
It's a real thing. I would tell you I did kind of the same thing. I don't know that I could tell you that was my end goal. And so I get asked all the time, will I value other types of businesses, especially by agents who have clients in their book of business that want a valuation? And my answer is, I'm an expert in this. Like, I don't know the risk factors for a plumber or the risk factors for a construction. I know the risk factors for an agency, and I know I also know their strengths. I know how that business model works. And you're right. Like, it took some times where I didn't look like the expert because you're just starting out. And the reality is agents look and feel different. And so, after doing 100 to 150 a year, you get to be, absolutely, I'm going to know more than the person who's sitting next to me, but I didn't start that way. And I think it's a lot of, it takes a lot of internal fortitude to be focused enough to do that, but also be willing to fail and willing to look to get super uncomfortable. I mean, that's the reality. You got to be able to step outside your comfort zone in order to make that happen. So hats off to you. But it's not an easy thing. There's a reason why there's only certain people that can make this happen, because some people like to only do things that they know everything about. Well, you can't get there unless you actually start out not knowing anything, and it's a thing. So you said a couple of things, though, that I'd love to dig into. So not many agencies, I do know a lot of agencies that have this, but not many agencies of the 40,000 independent insurance agencies across the country use Salesforce. There are some elite agencies that do. Tell me what that was like, building out Salesforce, and why that's important to both your niche and to the agency. Can you give a little bit of an overview of that?
Yeah, so I think there's really two big pieces that we found of Salesforce that's helpful, and I think it applies to other, strong softwares with the same customization that Salesforce offers. I think one's the the sales side, and that's really building out a good sales funnel, sales process, and taking advantage of the email marketing tools, all of that aspect of something like Salesforce. We also have HubSpot as well, so we have two major CRMs that we've invested in. So the sales side, and that's really where I'm at right now, is building that out to where I don't have to pick up the phone nearly as much as I did. Hopefully, we'll get to that point. So a lot of just cold calling, but and then the other aspect is the agency management, and I think that's where we put most of our work in. Especially when I first started, when we first started, we migrated basically different Salesforce platforms from Salesforce to Salesforce, but some different customizations around that time that I joined, and so I helped out with that. And I think really just taking the time to really build out these flows in Salesforce does help your thought process with building out your actual business workflows as well. And the two work hand in hand. And so what it's really forced us to do is to say, okay, what do we want this process to look like? What do we want our payment receipt process to look like and our renewal process to look like? And so those are the things that I've been able to help build out. And once you do, there's things to be improved on along the way, but there's processes we built that work seamlessly. And there's certainly processes that we need to improve on. But I think just working one at a time, what do we want the renewal process to look like? What do we want the claims process to look like? What do we want the payment receipt process to look like? and then having a system where you can literally do anything with, as long as you're able to program it, it can literally do anything you want. And so I think it's more powerful than a lot of agencies really need. We certainly haven't even scratched the surface of what Salesforce can do, but just knowing that if we want this email to go out when this piece of data is entered in, we know Salesforce can do that. We just have to figure out how. And so having that sort of potential to grow into is, I think, a good place to be at for a small agency, because I think we're limited by our lack of time and resources to be able to do everything that we want to do, but we can do it once we get the time and resources to do it. I don't know. That might have been a bit too philosophical and long-winded, but hopefully that helps.
No, it definitely helps. I think you're right on. The customer experience goes very hand in hand with building out the processes and the tech automation that comes with it. What are you still in the building process of that right now, or are you guys yet at the process of it's like happening and you're a little bit hands off and you're able to analyze it?
I'd say 50-50. There are several processes we built that we're very happy with, and seamless and really just monitoring things. There are others that we just need to carve out time to sit down and go through. And really, I think the biggest challenge for us has been just taking the time to sit down with team members to listen to the problems about Salesforce processes, errors, things that aren't ideal. And so that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned while I'm here, is that is very, very important to employee success, retention, happiness, as well as customer service. Is you've got to take time to sit down and go through those. So still every week I go over to, we've got 2 office locations. I go up 25 minutes up the road to our other office and just sit down with them and try to hear what their concerns are, fix any errors, see what we can improve as far as flows. And we certainly do not do that perfectly. We struggle in that in many ways, but we're learning and working towards that goal. If you've got to be listening to employees and also customers as they might see results of it as well. But I think employees is really the main thing, and seeking, okay, where do we want to go with this? What's the easiest way? What's the best way? And it's going to bring conflict, and you have to work through those issues. But there's really no other alternative to doing that, unless you just don't have a CRM.
Totally.
So,
have you seen any edits or customizations you've made by the hard market to any of the existing processes?
I think one of the processes that we're focused on most right now, just sort of as an agency, one of our goals is retention renewals. And so we've tried to put as much focus into that as we can. Because it in our opinion of the hard market is we're going to lose some people due to price, and we're also going to gain some people who are shopping around because of price. But if we can not only gain those people, but also keep our existing customers happy, then we're going to continue to grow. And so that's sort of been our focus on retention, on renewal process. We're trying to get to where every single one of our clients hear from us, every single year in a very consistent way at renewals, whether that's a $1,000 auto policy or a $50,000 commercial policy. Trying to get that process in our Salesforce where they're going to receive consistent communication before renewal. We get all of their information updated properly. That gets into our system. It's related to the carrier. We hear any of their concerns. And so it's a big undertaking, but I think taking just a year to say, we're going to focus on this and we're going to hire additional people to do that, and we're going to take time out of our day to go figure out the renewal process, it'll pay off in the end.
Definitely.
So Jonathan, tell me, I know how I connect inside this industry? I know, I've got a lot of colleagues, I've got a lot of friends, I've been in it for a long time. I'm probably old school. Tell me who are your mentors? Who do you, other than Andrew, because of course he's your mentor, but how do you connect with others and learn and network inside this industry? And what advice would you give to someone that maybe is thinking about the industry but isn't sure whether or not it's the place for them?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, one of the things that pushed me in the direction of doing niche marketing is was being on the protege and David Crothers, and he's certainly taken a good deal of time to help mentor me. So he'd be one person that I would mention, and he's got a lot of resources. You can check his LinkedIn on that and all of that. So sorry, I had someone come into my office there. So David Crothers has been fantastic in that area. There has been an underwriter at the really wholesale broker at the brokerage that we use for our real estate E&O that has just taken me under his wing for every single submission, and has just basically said, he's an open book and he's here to help me. And so that is fantastic. That's translated the most into actual revenue, into actual knowledge, because we're working on our day-to-day submissions. And so, yes, I'll go to Andrew with questions, but having one, knowledgeable, whether it's an underwriter, a broker, wholesaler, even an insurance agent that's a competitor, because if you're doing a niche market, you have very few competitors. Somebody like that to take you under their wing and just teach you the specifics, that's been fantastic. So, he's taught me everything I know about real estate E&O. And so I'd say that find a carrier, find somebody that's, successful and they're willing to just really give back what they've learned and help somebody out because they see themselves in that person. And if you have that at a carrier and you're writing business with them, there's no stopping that, because they're going to give you tips on winning that account. They're going to give you their honest take on that account. So that's fantastic. And then there's also some people that I follow just on LinkedIn, as far as the just daily encouragement, seeing their posts on just keeping at it. And so a lot of the folks on LinkedIn that are in this sort of niche market mindset, they're posting consistently every day, just reminders to keep going after it, keep doing what you're doing. And Charles Specht has certainly been one of those on LinkedIn. Trying to think of others that have been, but there are definitely people out there that I'm happy to connect people with as well.
Well, Jonathan, if anyone's listening to this podcast and wants to connect with you specifically, how can they reach you?
Sure. You can find our agency at veritasrm.com and contact us, or FirmSecured.com. That's me as well. You can chat with me there on the website, or LinkedIn is probably best. Jonathan Lugo on LinkedIn, FirmSecured. Message me there. I check all my DMs, and I love connecting with other young agents. I know that's how we met, Lindsay. Yeah. But also some of my good friends now. I'm in a group of 5 or 6 on a text group, and we text each other every day. So there's some underwriters, there's some agents, some wholesalers, some brokers, and we're all young guys in our 20s, and that's really fantastic. I just spent an hour on the phone with one of them yesterday, talking about just business ideas and life and marriage and all of that, and that's fantastic too.
Yeah.
So I'd say find some young people. If you're a young person, find some young people like that to just connect with, hang out with. Some of them I've not met in person yet, and I feel like they're some of my closest friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great industry to be a part of, but you got to be active and you got to reach out and and the beautiful thing is you'll always find someone who's willing to help you. And, it's the competitive, like you're competing with each other, but not really. You're actually helping because, the rising tide lifts all ships, no question about it. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. I got to tell you, when I talk to people like you, it feels like the industry and the future is incredibly, incredibly bright. So I appreciate you taking time and talking to us. And I look forward to seeing what you do and following what your career looks like for sure.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.